Oh, she's so beautiful. It is my turn tonight.
The Federal General Hospital was a large sprawling institution that served the public around the clock. By day, it was a place of healing, hope and bustle. But at night, it was something else entirely. The building, once filled with chatter and the hum of medical machinery, now carried an eerie silence. In the early hours of the morning, the hospital felt less like a medical institution and more like an ancient tomb, as if it carried the stories of the countless souls who passed through the doors. For Musa and Efe, both cleaners on the night shift, the hospital was both a workplace and a place of fascination. They worked long hours, sweeping and mopping the wide hallways, pushing carts through the maze of wards and treatment rooms. But it wasn't the cleaning that intrigued them. It was the forbidden territory that beckoned. That territory was the morgue. Their friend, Benga, the mortician, had made the morgue his domain. A man of mystery and dark humor. He had a fascination with death that bordered an obsession. He would often tell Musa and Nefe stories about the bodies he worked with. And though the stories were macabre, they couldn't help but be intrigued. So every night, after finishing their rounds, they would sneak into the morgue, drawn by their shared curiosity. One evening, as they approached the morgue, Benga was waiting for them. He had a wide grin on his face, a gleam in his eyes. "You won't believe who is on the table tonight," he said, his voice filled with excitement. Musa raised an eyebrow. "Another politician? A big-time pastor?" Benga chuckled. "Bigger. Way bigger." Efe, always the most sensitive of the two, was immediately interested. "Who?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. "Do you know Helen Duke, right?" Benga asked, practically bouncing on his heels. "Helen Duke?" Efe's eyes widened. "The actress from Shadows of Pain?" "The one and only," Benga confirmed, pulling the heavy morgue door open. "She is here on the table." The two cleaners exchanged glances. Helen Duke had been a household name, a talented actress who had won numerous awards, including Best Actress the year before. She had been at the peak of her career when tragedy struck, a car crash that had taken her life just the day before. Musa and Efe followed Benga inside. The morgue smelled faintly of antiseptic, the cold sterile air making their breath visible as they stepped closer to the table. There she was, her face covered with pristine white sheets. "She's beautiful," Efe whispered, her voice barely audible. Even in death, she was like that in life too. But death doesn't care about beauty. Her body came in like a cold piece of heart. Musa felt a shiver run down his spine as he stared at the actress's face. "How did she die?" he asked quietly. "A car accident," Benga replied. "She went off the bridge last night. The rescue team found her hours later, but by then it was too late." Efe leaned closer, eyes fixated on the actress' face. "She doesn't look dead." "That's how it is with celebrities," Benga said with a grin. "They preserve their beauty for as long as possible, even in death." Minutes passed in a hushed silence as the trio stood around the body. The air grew colder. The strange feeling of unease continued to creep in. The light was flickered, casting dark shadows that seemed to pulse along the walls. "You guys feel that?" Musa asked, his voice unsteady as he rubbed his hands to ward off the creeping chill. Benga, though trying to sound confident, shivered slightly. "It's just the morgue. It's always cold in here. Nothing to worry about." Efe, still staring at Ellen's face, felt an unfamiliar sensation washing over him. It was as though he wasn't just looking at a body, but staring into the eyes of someone who's still alive, someone who wasn't ready to leave this world. The moment was interrupted when Ellen's eyes snapped open. Efe screamed. Musa stumbled backward in shock, bumping into a nearby cat. Benga stood frozen, his face pale as he stared at the actress who had just opened her eyes, gasping for air. Ellen sat abruptly, her eyes wide with terror as she looked around the room. Where am I?" she whispered, her voice shaky. "What happened?" The trio stood in stunned silence, their minds struggling to make sense of the scene before them. Helen Duke, the woman who had been declared dead, was sitting up in front of them. Musa's voice cracked as he asked, "You were dead?" Helen looked down at her hands, confused. She touched her own face, as if to confirm she was truly alive. No one was in my car. Then the water. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was dead. Benga, still in disbelief, approached her slowly. You? You can't be alive. The coroner signed off on you. Eileen's gaze hardened. Clearly it was wrong, she said with frustration, her hands shaking. Suddenly, the door to the morgue creaked open, and a security guard stepped inside, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. What's the noise? He froze, his eyes wide with shock at the sight of Eileen sitting upright. The guard dropped his flashlight, which clattered to the floor, and without a word, turned and bolted down the hallway. Efe grabbed Musa's arm. We have to help her. She can't stay here. What do you mean help her? Musa snapped, panic rising in his voice. What are we supposed to do? You're not even supposed to be here. Helen, her voice rising with desperation, swung her leg up the table. I need to get out of here, please. You have to help me. Benga stood motionless, his mind racing. If anyone finds out about this, if you're caught, forget your job, Efe interrupted, his voice fierce. She's alive. We can't just leave her here to be locked back in the morgue. Helen looked at them, her eyes pleading. Please, you have to help me. Just as Benga was about to respond, the light above them flickered, then went out entirely. The room was plunged into darkness. A low guttural groan filled the space, seeming to come from the walls themselves. What the hell was that? Musa whispered, his voice trembling. Efe's breath caught in his throat. There's something in here with us. The temperature in the room dropped drastically. It was as though the air had turned to ice, freezing them all in the place. Helen's face twisted with fear. She grabbed Benga's arm, her nails digging into his skin. You have to get me out of here, now. Before anyone could respond, the stretcher, once empty, let out an ominous creak. The metal frame groaned as if something were climbing onto it. Musa glanced at the others, his mind racing with terror. Something is here, something that wasn't here before. Efe's voice shook. What do we do? Stay close, Benga whispered, his heart pounding. We need to get out of here before whatever in here gets to us. Helen, her face pale, looked around. It's followed me. I don't know what it is, but it's here with me now. They could hear the friend's fierce, scratching sound, like claws scraping against metal, coming from the corner of the room. The hair grew thicker, darker, as though something was watching them from the shadows. Benga reached for the door, but it wouldn't budge. The handle jiggled in his hand, but the door remained locked. Panic set in. Something's blocking the door, Benga said, fear creeping into his voice. The morgue door refused to budge, no matter how hard Benga yanked at it. Panic seeped into the group as the scratching sounds grew louder. It was no longer just coming from the corner of the room. It was surrounding them. Efe clutched Musa's arm tightly. What's happening? Why won't the door open? Benga's voice was shaky as he replied, It's not locked. It's like something doesn't want us to leave. Ellen stood trembling, her voice wrapped around herself. This started after the accident. I saw something in the water. It wasn't a dream, it was real. What did you see? Musa asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ellen hesitated, her eyes darting to the dark corners of the room. I don't know what it was, but it had eyes that burned like fire. And when I woke up here, I felt it. It's still with me. The lights flickered back on for a brief moment, revealing the group huddled near the table. But in that brief flash of light, something moved in the shadows. Something tall, hunched, and otherworldly.